Welcome back once more. Fittingly, but unplanned, the next to talk about is Stoichia. While home to the Pirates of Grand Blue, it is also home to the Bioroids of Neonectar. Stoichia probably has the largest physical impact on the planet, if not politically or sociologically. The question of where to start is one that always comes to mind when you talk about Stoichia, mostly due to the massive amount of territory they impact. However, as a scholar, my choice is biased towards the tale of how they began. When the Godless Era began, two major events impacted the landmass of Zoo: the fall of Great Nature College and the reduced food production of Neonectar. The latter likely played part in the former, but regardless, both took place, impacting the entire planet of Cray. With Great Nature missing and dissolved, education began to decrease, until picked up by the individual nations, that is. Some were more impacted than others, but the loss of historical knowledge was felt worldwide. Additionally, Neonectar had a hard time producing the insane amount of food that they used to, forcing food production back to the nations. Once again, some nations felt this more than others, but this event did in fact shape a large portion of events going forward. Though that was how the Godless Era began for the continent that would eventually be called Stoichia, that is not how it has unfolded in late. In recent history, a great man by the name of Stoichia heard the stories of Great Nature and sought to rebuild the massive collection of knowledge they once had. He did not live forever, as no one does, but his reputation united the clans that once lived under Zoo and Megalonica under his legacy, forming the great nation of Stoichia. They now protect the now found Great Nature knowledge as well as the collection he himself created. As you may have noticed, and has been pointed out to me by my colleagues, for each nation I have kind of been creating a theme and focusing on it. While not intentional, I will be continuing it with this ritual. In Stoichia, you will notice everything exists in relationships, more so than any other nation. To explain this, I will show you the Mafia, the Veleno family. Born from the stories of Mega Colony, this organization is protected, led, and organized by the insectoid Lescaria, wielder of her mother's dream blade. Lescaria took up her mother's blade to defend the peace her family created. There is something that should be noted, though, as I'm sure my words communicate some form of crime organization, which is mostly inaccurate, or at the very least incomplete. You see, the word mafia has come to mean something different since the days of old. To call them criminals is cruel, and arguably inaccurate, as the islands they control have no true laws for them to break. They do have protection fees, but they are low, and they do act with little restraint, but only to keep the peace. The bond this family has extends to the innocent, not just to the members of the Mafia, meaning, in some ways, they kind of act as a government in and of themselves, creating laws for their islands as opposed to breaking them. I speak of relationships, and most would assume, and for the most part accurately, that the relationships I speak of are between two sapient individuals. However, not all of the relationships are as such. To observe this, look no further than Silver-Horned Beast King himself, once protector of the great wilds that were his sacred lands, and the world tree that is its heart. The Beast King's power was unmatched. Any challenger would learn to respect his rule, and either leave his lands or join his honorable beasts, or feed the great lands as fertilizer. For those reasons, the king eventually elevated to emperor. But no king rules forever, and the bestial nature of Magnolia meant his reign would inevitably end in tragedy. No one could expect the tragedy that would unfold to end his rule, though. It came in the form of the Evil Eye. She challenged the Emperor of his rule, and the Beast King lost. He kneeled before her, stating that in the eye of beasts the weak serve the strong, knowing full well it could be the end of his life. Instead, the evil eye glinted with what little joy remained in her heart of vengeance as she destroyed his lands and placed a cursed mask upon his face. As his sacred lands fell to the corruption of the Dragon Tree invasion, so did its king. Now that you understand the landmass of Stoichia and the relationships that unfold there, I should probably touch on Granblue since I already mentioned them in the creation of Lyrical Monasterio. They also have, in fact, created and been involved in several interesting events, but not for quite some time. They have been abnormally quiet. The Regrain, the cursed ship that was the flagship of Granblue for almost all of its history, was recently reportedly destroyed on the coast of the Blankmire. But these reports are vague and confusing. Several spirits and zombies have been acting on the wishes of the captain, but unlike the Granblue of old, the new captain seems interested in keeping to the shadowy depths. Even still, it is known that this relationship he has is toxic. Every report I can find speaks of forbidden acts, horrific and insane plans, or impossible games where someone loses everything. Reports say he beat the Dawn in a game of chance, tricked the Great Knights into an impossible game, and even invaded the law more than the CEO himself. At the end of the day, do I believe these reports? Maybe. Should you fear the captain? That's up to you, but personally, there's a reason I have not sunk to the depths of his sea. Now, I have quite a bit more time than I thought I would. I thought that those topics would be a bit more extensive than they turned out to be, so I will hit on one more individual, one I find myself in thorough intrigue with. The wise wolf of brilliance, Granfia, guardian of another world tree, as well as, supposedly, a secret rose garden full of all sorts of beautiful sprites and spirits. It's a really interesting concept to consider. I don't know how accurate those descriptors are, but like me, he is a guardian of knowledge and a scholar. So I would not put it past him to have a mysterious hidden garden or something. After all, this very library you see around you is its own pocket dimension of sorts. Again, very understandable to me. But, however, those factors are not oh so important to the grand scheme of the world. However, what is his childhood friendship to Leonorn, the Grand March of Full Bloom, one of the world's most famous entertainers, and, as far as I'm aware, one of the only entertainers that is not explicitly linked to Lyrical Monasterio. Truly an interesting concept when Lyrical Monasterio is such a beloved entertaining group. But, again, there is one other friendship that is involved in this story, that being the evil eye herself, Amina Gruzio. Now, this relationship, though not explicitly connected, is still intriguing, as Granfia's domain is very close to what would eventually be known as the Valley of Fear, Amina Gruzio's very own domain. And honestly, from what I can tell looking at maps and what little I can pick up studying, it is the power that he wields in his Noblesse Rose Garden that manages to keep Amina Gruzio's domain from overtaking all of Stoichia and turning it into another Dark States. This multi-step relationship seems to cause all sorts of interesting events. Like I said, Leonorn is one of the few who have managed to befriend the Evil Eye herself, and Granfia is friends with Leonorn. And while not documented or explicitly stated anywhere as far as I can tell, it seems as though Leonorn is using her connection with both to allow Amina Gruzio to put her rage and desire for vengeance aside and join Stoichia in a weird symbiotic relationship, for lack of a better term. where Amina Gruzio defends her Valley of Fear and keeps the dangerous corruption that she put there at bay with help of those around her. Again, I have very little evidence for this relationship, but the thought intrigues me so, and I find it very difficult to simply wave the coincidence that the Valley of Fear stopped growing aside when Leonorn went to visit Amina. From the tops of its beautiful world trees to the depths of its darkest oceans, Stoichia contains some form of beauty, containing all elements of the cycle of life and death in its land. Some wield it to protect, while others to destroy. But that is the way of nature, for it may rain for your crops or cause a fire to burn it all away. There is, however, one thing I should mention before moving on to the next nation. Word has it that the Fire Regalius, a mysterious tool that can fulfill your wildest dreams, not only exists in the land, but has been found. I'm sure if that's the case, though, it's enough of a story to fill it an epic, and thus not one I will cover anytime soon.